Welcome to Next Level Play Therapy, a weekly podcast dedicated to supporting the next generation of child and adolescent therapists to provide exceptional play therapy services. We'll explore all things play therapy to elevate your work with children and adolescents using the therapeutic powers of play. I'll discuss practical tips and ideas so you can provide a transformative experience for your young clients and make a real difference in their lives. So get ready to take your play therapy skills to the next level and make a lasting impact in the lives of children, adolescents, and families. Hey there. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's morning here in the United States. Good afternoon to you if you're outside of the United States. So today is Thursday. I usually go live on Wednesday, but I was having air conditioning put in yesterday, so I decided it would be better to wait another day to go live. And I'm really excited today because I have some guests for Jurassic Sand to talk about their sand. If you are interested in doing sand tray, if you're already doing sand tray therapy with your clients, you may or may not have experienced the torture of dusty sand. So today I invited Mary and John from Jurassic Sand to talk about their sand and how it is, well, in my opinion, it's more beneficial because it's not dusty. So I invited them on to talk a little bit about their sand. So that is today's episode, talking about my favorite sand to use in sand tray therapy that is not dusty. So let me bring them on and introduce them for today. Hey, Mary and John.
Hi,
Good
Cathi.
morning, Cathi.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Very excited to have you. I love Jurassic Sand and have probably almost every sand that you have, and they're all phenomenal. So I thought maybe, so if anyone is joining us live, go ahead and post your name in the comments. If you have questions for Mary and John about their sand, that would be awesome. Post those in the questions. And for those of you who stay to the end of the broadcast, even on the replay, there is a surprise at the end, special gift. So, all righty. So post your name in the comments. Ask any questions. Also, if you're watching on the replay, you can always ask questions as well, because I can always reach out to Mary and ask her, and she'll give me an answer right away. So, all right. So can you guys tell us about your sand and what makes it not dusty? Maybe a little bit about Jurassic Sand. That would be awesome.
Okay. Well, the main point about Jurassic Sand is that it's natural, and it's made, basically it's a desert sand. So it's just made from the wind blown, and that's compared to a lot of the manufactured sands that you can get in home improvement stores and things, where it's made from crushed rock and pulverized rock down to a certain size. So our sands, the grains are more rounder usually and smoother because they've just been blown in the wind so long. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. The all natural part of our sand is definitely what makes it no dust. And when you excavate sand from the earth and then pulverize it to a certain grain size, that's going to cause a lot of dust. And it's also going to cause a lot of sharper angles on the grains. All of our sand has really smooth, round grains. And so that also leads to less dust.
Well, that answers I've always been so curious how you got your sand so smooth. That's especially the garnet sand. I didn't realize it was more of the wind-blown debris. That's pretty cool. And you know what? That's one of the things that I really like about your sand, is because it is natural. And as a sand therapist, like someone who uses sand tray therapy with children, adolescents, and adults, and we're adding all those miniatures, and you can see all my miniatures in the background. It feels to me like it's more grounded because okay, this is totally going to sound nerdy, but you guys will get it. It's more natural, and it feels like it's more grounded to the earth. And I don't know, it just feels more powerful as a sand tray therapist to me. I love that part about your sand. And there's different textures to them too. And I love that.
Yeah,
Definitely. And we have different grain sizes, which leads to those different textures. And so that's a lot of play therapists like having different textures and different feels on their sands. It's not always about the color or the aesthetics of the sand, but it is a lot about what they want to use the sand for in different grain sizes, really.
Yeah. How do you get it to be not dusty?
So that's really done by nature. And so when it's been blown around for millions of years, and then when we go get it, we get it to be not dusty right when we get it from the earth. And so
right. But to clarify, in some of the garnet sands, we do have to wash those.
Okay.
Because they don't, it's just not the same kind of deposit where they're from. But we do a washing. But some of it is just screening too, just to make sure, because it is all natural. You know, you don't want to get a scorpion in your sand or something.
I know. And I'm from the East Coast, so we moved here 5 years ago to the West Coast because I live in Southern Nevada. We never had scorpions. And then we moved out here. I'm like, oh, I don't really like scorpions. And I never thought about having scorpions in my sand. But that's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is from the desert. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And we definitely ensure that all our sand is not dusty. When we're getting the sand, when we're cleaning it, we definitely do the eyeball test and make sure there's no nuisance dust or anything like that.
And no scorpions.
Yeah, make sure no scorpions.
That would be funny. Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your sand? And I know, John, you have some samples there, and I can add your phone whenever you're ready. And so for those of you that are watching, John and Mary have some samples about their sand, and then John's going to use his camera so he can show you a little bit about the sand. So if you're watching live and you have questions about the sand, go ahead and post those in the comments, and then we can answer those. If you have questions after the broadcast, if you're watching in the replay, feel free to post those questions, and I can always get back to you about those. All righty, let me add John's phone. Okay, I'm totally nerding out because I love their sand. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see all the different colors, but beyond that, the different grain sizes. So yeah, if you rake through this is our original Jurassic. It's a lot finer than, say, our deep purple here, which is a garnet. And so these have much bigger grain sizes. And so that's a big draw for play therapists, is the different grain sizes and what you can do with that.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting too, because I know you guys don't do the black volcanic sand anymore. But for me, that garnet sand, especially the coarse grain, kind of filled that, I'll call it a void, because it's really, really dark and the grains are really more coarse and thick, like that volcanic sand was. And I loved that volcanic sand.
The grains are more angular. And sure, we have another one that's a little coarser called riverbed.
Yes, that one's cool too.
And yeah, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about people liking the riverbed for wet trays. So when they get it wet, they actually really like the riverbed sand for play therapy.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I was going to ask you which of those Which of those some of them can get wet and some of them cannot get wet, right?
All of the sands can get wet, but we
Okay.
do have a lighter weight one we call knot sand. If you want to show.
Oh, the knot, yes.
And that's actually not a sand. It's made from the interior of corn cobs. And so that one is crushed corn cobs, like it's made from that. But we have it as an option because some people needed something lighter. And so like if you say you have 50 pounds of sand in your sand tray, well, you can't really carry that around. It's too heavy. But the equivalent amount of knot sand only weighs 16 pounds. So if you say you're traveling to a client doing an in-home session, you can carry a tray of that in.
And did you find, I thought I remembered the knot sand was good for kids who have sensory issues. Like they don't, because sometimes like with kids with sensory processing, especially the tactile, sometimes different textures in the sand will be unbearable. Have you had people tell you that experience with the knot sand?
Yeah, I've heard from just a couple teachers about that, and they say some like maybe special education kids like say the knot sand or like the riverbed sand because it's rougher and they can feel it versus say our original, which is very smooth in that. And so, but I think different children have different preferences too about like what they want their fingers to feel. And so some just don't like the feel of the really smooth. And others do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I've had people ask me in sand tray trainings that I do they'll ask me about using rice and things like that, and I always kind of showed them the knot sand if they've got kids who were looking for, because sometimes the preschools will use the rice instead of the sand.
Yeah.
And that the sparkly white one.
Oh yeah.
Stardust. That
one's really cool. It's pretty much like a water. When you have it in a bag and you move it around, it's very liquid-like, and you can see just how round the particles are, the grains of sand. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And what is that one made out of?
All of the sand, is sand, which is quartz, which is silica. That's what sand is. And that one's, I'm not exactly sure where we get that. Like,
well, yeah, that's proprietary.
Yeah, but they're all from the desert Southwest. It's just, this is one that actually is just very smooth and very slippery. So you have to be careful to spill it.
Yes, it is very slippy slidey. And an interesting thing about that sand, I had a kid that I was working with, a child, male, and he had a lot of anxiety. That sand was so soothing for him. Like if we had to talk about difficult things, I would get out, I would make a little, because I had some small sandboxes as well that I used for training, but I brought one in for him so that when we were talking, I filled it up with some of that stardust, and he would use that as his self-soothe while we talked, because he was older, while we talked about some of the things he was worried about. And his mom got him some of that sand so he can have some at home.
Nice.
Yeah. It's very slippy slidey though.
Very.
Definitely.
It's pretty when I do sand trainings. Yeah, when I do sand training, in-person sand trainings, and I have that one available for people to use. So when I do the in-person, I'll have all your sand in different sand trays and people get to use different sand trays with the different sand. And that was very popular.
So one question we get a lot is about cleaning the sand and how to keep it clean, especially now with the pandemic.
Yeah. So how do you guys have suggestions about cleaning the sand?
Yeah, well, so there's different kind of levels of clean. And so one option would be, to screen it. Like if you're just trying to get twigs or debris out of it, but usually your sand trays are indoors, so you're not worried about that as much, so the easiest option is just to screen it to get debris out, but then to actually like disinfect it or sanitize it. There's different things you can do. One option is to use the spray bottle of like 9 parts water, 1 part bleach, and you can spray it and get it moist and, kind of move it around, spray it, get a good covering so it's moist, and you let it sit for like a minute, and then you just let it dry, and it'll be, and that's disinfecting. And
that's sanitizing. And then another option is Lysol. You spray it. But the trick is with those disinfecting and sanitizing is the idea is to get every grain of sand. And so it's really tough when there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of sand in there. So you're not going to get every grain. So really the best way to keep your sand clean if you're doing sand tray is to make sure you and your client wash your hands thoroughly before you touch the sand, because that's going to ultimately keep it the most clean.
Yeah. And we have a lot of those hand sanitizer disinfectant all around our office. And I always have them use that before we go in, and they have to do that after we leave. And sometimes with the different sand, because some of it kind of sticks to their hands a tiny bit. So sometimes they'll wash their hands, but here's one of the things I learned a long time ago at a sand tray training for therapists is really you don't want to wash your figures in the sink, because then the sand will collect at that little cube. So I always suggest that people keep like a bucket of water and then do it and wash their figures in the bucket of water, which you can put bleach in there too, and then or have a bucket of water nearby, and the kids can wash their hands in the bucket, not with bleach in it, but just plain water, so that their sinks don't get clogged up with sand.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Definitely. And then another way to actually sterilize the sand is to put it on like a cookie sheet and put it in the oven, turn the oven up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and then put it in there for 4 hours, let it sit overnight so it cools. And then when you wake up in the morning, you'll have warm sand that's been sterilized. And so
that's
another good option. And so with those cleaning techniques, we often get asked, how often should I replace my sand? And we always tell them never. Our sand lasts forever. So
the sand is non-porous, non-permeable, so the sand will last forever. Where the danger comes in is we actually even had one preschool call us because they were standing around the sensory table, and a child vomited through a tube. And we actually explained to them how to clean it, and that the sand is fine. You just need to get the other debris out of there. And in that case, we had them put it in a big garbage can, and put a hose down in the bottom. And so everything came up in the water, and they could just spill the dirty water off the top, and then spread the sand out like on a sheet in the sun and let it dry. And it was, good as new.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. I could just imagine if my son saw that when he was little. They're grown now. Never touch it again. But that's true, because when I got your originally I got Jurassic Sand because I was so tired of the dust. I tried the cheaper options, but when you're working with children and they sift and they pour, it's like this cloud of dust that rises, and it is torture. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to order the sand. I've had your sand. When did I get it? Like 2004 is when I ordered it. And it was funny because it was your original sand. So it's the orange one. And I I have like that one. It's that one, which is very soft and silky. And so, I lived on the East Coast, so I was in Virginia. I didn't know how you got this awesome sand with these weird colors because I'd never seen sand like that. Like sand doesn't come in that color from the East Coast. Anyway, so we moved here and I moved to southern Nevada and I worked over there in southern Utah and I went to Sand Hollow and I thought I was like, oh my gosh, that's a real color. That's a real color sand. How is that? I was mesmerized that that's actually a real color sand. Yeah. And then there's a pink coral. What is that? Coral pink. That's my other state park. Yeah. And then that's my other destination to go and see that other state park where they have these colored sand. But who knew you have like those colored sands? And you have do you still have the golden Cambria? Because I thought I saw it in there. So if people want more of like a beach vibe, that one's a nice one to get. And my other favorite that you have, and again, I did not know this was real sand because now I live in the Mojave Desert, and I took a drive over to Valley of Fire. And in Valley of Fire, they had that Mojave sand color. And I remember looking at it thinking, I love that one. Yeah. I remember looking at it thinking, that's a real color.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's really smooth too.
Yeah, that one's really smooth. And it's got this really, so that beach sand really gives you the beach vibe. And then this is my experience with it. And the Mojave sand is got this when I use these at the sand trainings, people use the different sands. And it's always interesting to me when they create their sand tray at the trainings, how much they seem different in the different sand. So I get asked that question all the time, does color make a difference? And I'll say, well, yes and no. It really depends on who's ever creating the sand. But it does, I think with the texture and the color a little bit, gives it really a different experience. So people will ask me all the time, should you have more than one sand tray or different sand? And ideally, I think that's awesome if you can offer more sand experiences, because it's always interesting to see what people do with it and the different kind of sand trays and their experience in those sand trays. And if that's the case, though, I always tell people you have to come up with some kind of kinds of rules, because when they use one sand figure and then they put it in the other sand, then you get these hybrid mixed sand trays, which drives me crazy. It's kind of like letting people mix your Play-Doh. In my opinion, do not mix your Play-Doh. That is not a thing. That's a rule. No mixing Play-Doh. So in the playroom, because I have different sand, that's my rule. You have to give me your figures. And that's my way of doing it. Well, thank you for being on today. And for any of you interested, I do have, if you're interested in learning more about play therapy or expressive arts, I have some trainings coming up. I do have some sand tray trainings. I have an online supervision group if you're interested in that. If you're interested in the sand tray trainings, you can also go to my website, and I'll post the link for the discount code. I'll also post a link. I have a free PDF for must-have sand tray therapy miniature. So I'll post that for anyone interested in that free PDF. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye for now.
See you later.
See you later.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Next Level Play Therapy. I hope you found the discussion valuable and gained new insights and ideas to support your work helping children, adolescents, and families heal. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps to improve and reach more people who can benefit from this information. Remember, play therapy is a powerful tool for healing and growth. Whether you're a new play therapist or experienced, I encourage you to continue your learning journey to unlock the potential of play in your own work and relationships. If you have any questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media and visit my website at Renewing Hearts Play Therapy Training to stay updated on upcoming episodes, trainings, and resources. Thank you once again for listening to Next Level Play Therapy. Until next time, keep playing, learning, and growing.